Hi, this is Sonia and I'm going to show you how to create simple but nice doodle designs. This is a very basic tutorial aimed for people wanting to learn how to create doodles based on patterns, on geometric patterns basically. The great thing about this type of doodling is that you don't need any drawing skills or artistic mindset or anything that might seem difficult for non-artists. You don't even need any fancy materials, just a pen and a piece of paper. I'm going to use this affordable student quality marker. This is not even an artist quality pen. It's something very basic you can find at any school supply store, or you will probably have one of those at home. You can also use a fine liner or a gel pen or any other pen with a smaller tip, but I plan to create a pretty large doodle and I want the details to be appreciated from a distance. So for that type of doodling, it's better to use a pen with a larger tip, like that one. The goal of this video is to show you how easy it is to create nice simple patterns, because they are all just a combination of basic lines and shapes. Wanna see it? Get a marker and a piece of paper and let's start doodling. Everything we are going to doodle here is based on straight lines, like those ones, and curved lines, like this. From those lines we can create shapes, squares, rectangles, triangles, irregular shapes, circles, ovals, those shapes that look like an eye, semicircles. And now we can combine those lines and shapes to create more complex shapes and patterns. With two straight lines we can form a chord, and then we can put some chords together to have a pattern. We can also decorate those chords with other lines and solid blocks. With straight lines we also can create a zigzag, and we can make that zigzag double and decorate it with dots, for example. We can put the zigzag in between two lines and have another pattern that we can decorate, filling the triangle, for example. We can also create another pattern using opened squares that we will connect with straight lines. And then we can embellish this with drawing little squares inside the big ones. Not everything has to be a regular shape. We can, for example, create an irregular zigzag. We can also draw one square inside another and do the same with other shapes like triangles, and we will have more complex shapes that then we can combine together to form patterns. Now I'm going to draw a set of lines, one below the other, like filling an imaginary square, and then do the same thing in the opposite directions, and this way we will have another nice pattern. Keeping working with straight lines, we can draw a set of them that meet on a certain point, and we will have something like this. And we can also create just a simple grid that we can decorate by, for example, filling some of the squares. And now, moving to curved lines and shapes, we can put some semicircles together to form this pattern and create a variation by placing some straight lines in between the semicircles. And then we can decorate it by, for example, placing one little dot inside of one of the semicircles. Let's now create a curved chord and decorate it with some solid blocks. We can also create arcs and put together some curved lines forming this kind of wave signal shape. And like we did with the squares and triangles, we can create some concentric circles and also semicircles and have those very nice patterns. Now I'm going to combine some of those semicircle stripes we saw before and create this roof tile pattern. We can also create a simple stripe of circles and we can place them inside a chord, and now we have a decorated chord. We can also create patterns by grouping circles together in group of 3, for example, or in a large group with circles of different sizes. We can also just put a set of circles or eye shapes one next to the other, or create more complex patterns by, for example, placing some A shapes together to form a flower. Another nice pattern can be created by drawing a curved line like this one, and then drawing its mirror image next to it, having some contact points. And from here we can move to start combining some of these shapes and patterns to create more complex patterns. And for this I'm going to use a pen of another color. Let's start with some vertical chords that we are going to link together with some horizontal lines. Then we can fill one of those chords. Now I'm going to draw a chord and decorate it with some dots, and then add a border made with some semicircles that I'm also decorating by adding a solid border to them. Now on the bottom side of the chord I'm going to add another border of semicircles, but this time I'm going to fill them and add a secondary border with just a line of semicircles. Now I'm creating a chord that has an irregular width and decorate it with oval shapes that will adapt to the width of the chord, so they will have an irregular size. And then I'm going to embellish this with a couple of lines. We can keep building on that and add, for example, a border of semicircles or a border of triangles, as I'm doing here, and decorating them with a little dot. We are starting to see how by combining simple forms and shapes we have a huge number of possibilities to create nice patterns. Here my canvas went out of the reach of my camera. I apologize for that. You will miss a couple of designs, but it's not important. We will see them later. What I was doing here was a zigzag pattern like the ones we saw before, and now I'm drawing the mirror image of that zigzag pattern and filling the space in between with a solid color, leaving some white circles. This technique of adding some solid areas, leaving some blank spaces, blank shapes in them, it's something I use a lot in my doodles because it adds some kind of dramatic effect to them, and I really love how it looks. Here again you can see what I'm drawing, sorry for that. It's just a set of concentric right angles. Here I'm drawing our already very familiar zigzag pattern within two lines and filling the triangles. And I'm repeating the same set below, and now I'm going to decorate the background of both of the sets, one with lines and the other one with dots. Another thing you can do is a wall-like pattern. You can decorate it if you feel like. And here we are again on the area out of the reach of my camera. I apologize for that again. What I'm drawing now, it's a set of concentric triangles, one next to the other, and on the background some parallel lines, like the ones we can see here on my right. Starting again with the zigzag pattern within two lines, I'm going to show you another very interesting pattern. This type of pattern is going to add some kind of depth to our drawing. To create the depth effect, we are going to fill the top triangles with oblique lines parallels to the right side of the triangles, and then do the same with the bottom ones, what will create the lines on the opposite direction, and this is what gives the depth effect. And finally, I like to go over the zigzag pattern to highlight the depth effect. And now another of my favorite patterns. The goal is to create some kind of interlaced stripes, and to do it we draw different sets of parallel lines that go in different directions. As you can see, this is something very easy to draw, but the result is very interesting. Let's keep working with straight lines and create another very nice pattern. We start by creating a triangle and then a concentric one, but starting at one of the vertex of the triangle and going with each line up to touching one of the sides of the outer triangle. And you keep going and creating as many inner triangles as you want. The important thing here is that each one of the sides of the triangle you are creating should touch the side of the immediately outer triangle. Once you are done with one triangle, you can place another one next to it and keep adding as many as you want. Now I'm going to create the same depth effect we saw with triangles, but with curved lines. The technique is exactly the same. We create the curved line, and then we're going to create parallel lines to that curve in one direction in the bottom area and on the opposite direction in the top area. And I like to highlight the curved line, but this is optional, you don't have to. And now another pattern based on curved lines. What I'm going to do here is some kind of wavy design. We start by creating a curved line, and then some other lines below that one that start being parallel with that, but end up touching the upper line at some point. And you keep doing this as many times as you want. Once you are done with your first set of lines, you can add another one that is going to touch that one at some point, and then you keep adding other sets, as many as you want. And when you are happy with your set of curved lines, you can fill the areas in between them with a solid color. I'm going to add some more lines and solid areas. Nice. And now another pattern with curved lines. Let's start by creating two short curved lines that meet in the beginning and the end points. And now let's start adding more curved lines to one of the sides. Those lines should touch the previous one on both ends, and we make them smaller every time. And now let's do the same to the other side. But here I'm just adding few of those lines and starting another shape in another point. And add the curved lines to one of the sides of the new shape until it meets the previous one. Now I'm going to do the same on the other side. And go back to the previous shape and keep adding lines until it meets the new one. And here we have another pattern. You can keep adding as many sets of curved lines as you want, and you will end up with a very interesting design. Now let's create an arc and embellish it by filling its center. And let's create another arc next to it and do the same. And let's add another one. And now we can add another row of arcs above that one and create a roof tile pattern like the one we saw before. Nice. I love arcs. You can do a lot of things with them. Let's now create another arc and add an inner border, then an outer one, and create another arc next to that one. And do the same. And finally, we are going to embellish them with some circles all around the border. Let's now create another arc and add an outer one that we can decorate with some straight lines. Let's add an inner one, a solid one, and fill the center with some straight lines. And this is another thing you can do with arcs. Now let's create some concentric circles and add some more of those sets of concentric circles, overlapping each other. Nice, right? Now let's create some sets of concentric semicircles and build the roof tile patterns we saw before. I love those sets of concentric shapes, and they're very nice, and we can combine them together in a lot of different ways. Here, for example, I'm combining different shapes together, which also looks great. The roof tile pattern is a very handy one too, because as we have seen, you can combine different shapes and different decorations together to form it, and you will get very different results, which is always great. Here, for example, I'm going to create the pattern with triangles. I'm going to draw some triangles and then fill their center to decorate them. And you have a very nice pattern here. Let's see another example of a roof tile pattern. This time we are going to combine semicircles and triangles. And we are going to decorate them in two different ways. A solid center for the semicircles and some straight lines for the triangles. As you can see, by combining together just a handful of elements, decorations and patterns, you can get a pretty good deal of different designs. Now let's create a set of straight lines that meet in one point and add some horizontal curved lines, creating that kind of grid pattern with a cone shape. Now we can decorate it, filling each other square, for example. Now let's combine some of those flowers to create a pattern. You can draw each flower individually or create a line of petals in one direction and then add the petals in the other direction, whatever you like. Let me show you another way of creating this pattern. Instead of drawing each one of the petals individually, we can create this kind of curvy line and then the mirror one, the same one on the opposite direction, next to it to create a line of vertical petals. Then we can create the horizontal ones the same way. Let's now create a curved line and another one on the opposite direction, having a contact point in the center. And let's do the same thing horizontally, crossing the first one on the center. And now let's just close the ends of each one of those sides. And here we have a cross. And we can create as many of them as we want to create patterns. We can also create spirals and decorate them as we do with cords. And of course we can add as many spirals as we want to create patterns. With those eye shapes we use to create petals, we can also create leaves. Here I'm going to create one and decorate it with straight lines on one side and a solid color on the other side, and then just add a border. And now I'm going to create a couple of leaves and connect them with some straight lines. And now add some decorations. We can decorate them in different ways. And here we have another pattern. And this is it. We have seen how to create basic shapes and patterns. Let's now put them together to create a nice doodle design. But before that, let me go over those designs I created out of the reach of the camera. Those are the doodles you didn't see. This one here, that one, and that one. I'm going to draw them again so you can see how to do it. That one too. And those in the bottom were just partially shown, so you can see them completely now. Okay, the first one is just a set of irregular forms. You draw them one next to the other and fill them with a solid color. And this is it. It's that easy. The other one consists of two sets of concentric right angles facing opposite directions. Now let's create two thick parallel lines and three triangles inside, and let's add some concentric triangles to each one of them. And to finish it, some parallel lines on the background. And finally, that design here, which is like the one we created with triangles but using squares. We start with a square, and then we create an inner one starting on a vertex and going up to the opposite side of the outer square, and keep building the inner square like that. And then we create another one, and as many as we want. Remember that the important thing here is to go up to the opposite side of the immediately outer square. Let me create another one. Nice. Now we are ready to start creating our doodle. With a curved line, let's create an area where to create our first pattern. I'm going to start creating some sets of semicircles overlapping each other, and I'm going to go up to the middle of the area. I like to go over the border of some of the circles to give some feeling of depth. And then fill the top part of the area with a solid color, leaving some white shapes, squares and rectangles in that case. Let's create a chord from that line and decorate it with some circles. Now I'm going to fill the center of each one of those circles and add some straight lines on the background. Nice. Let's create another area, and I'm going to add some semicircles to that border here and fill them with a solid color, and then add an outer border. Now I'm going to add some divisions to that area with straight lines that time and create some chords. I'm decorating the first one with straight lines and filling the area with some patterns. I've changed my mind, and I think I'm going to fill this chord with a solid color instead of straight lines. To fill this second area, I'm going to start with a couple of rows of different geometric shapes with concentric shapes inside. Then I'm going over the border of each one of those shapes to highlight them and decorate them using some dots and straight lines. I'm going to fill the top part of the area with a set of small circles of different sizes touching each other, like stones on a river or something similar. Let's now decorate that chord and add a row of triangles with an inner dot, and then add another row, this time with semicircles decorated with lines. And let's repeat that. Let's create another row of triangles and another one of semicircles. Now let's repeat the pattern on the opposite side of the area and fill the space in between with straight lines and some circles and triangles here and there. Nice. Let's decorate that chord here and add another decorated chord and a row of triangles on top of that. And let's move to another area. Here I'm going to draw the Interlaced Stripes pattern we saw before. This is a very nice pattern and very relaxing to draw, at least for me. I really love that one. Now I'm going over the border of some of the stripes to highlight the feeling of depth. This is something optional, but I really think adds interest to the pattern, so I always do it. Now I'm going to add here another cord and decorate it. I think it needs some solid color, so I'm going to add some circles and then a black, a solid background. Let's add another cord here and a couple of lines to create another area. I'm going to add another cord next to that one and decorate it. Now I'm going to fill that area with a pattern based on triangles. I'm creating a roof tile pattern with those triangles, and then I'm going to do the same on the opposite side of the area. But first I'm going to add another cord here and decorate it with a dashed line. I'm going to add a different decoration on that top area, and then I'm going to keep building that roof tile pattern. And I'm going to fill the space in between with a solid color with some white circles. Let's move to another area. Here I'm going to draw a couple of vertical cords and place parallel, slightly curved lines between them. I'm going to highlight those cords here and fill this area with some semicircles decorated with a thick border. Now I'm going to keep filling those areas with the curved lines, but facing down this time. I'm going to decorate this cord with dots, and I think I'm going to fill the other ones with solid color. Actually, I'm going to fill that one with solid color too, and add some more lines here. Now in this area, I'm going to place a couple of leaves and decorate them. I'm adding a cord to the background and creating a division. And now I'm going to fill the bottom area with solid circles and the top part with some lines following the curvature of the central cord. I'm going to add some dots to the undecorated side of the leaves. And I'm going to add some vertical lines in that top area to convert those lines into a grid. Looks good. I think we need some organic design here on the top area to break the rigidity of those straight lines, and also some white to add a little contrast to that pretty dark area. I'm going to create a very curved irregular cord here to delimitate the area and decorate it by alternating blocks of solid color and white. And I'm going to go over the border to make it a little thicker. Now I'm going to add some tall arcs all along the cord and decorate them with a thick inner line and some circles on the top. Now I'm going to fill the background with some curvy lines, giving a pretty good deal of blank space in between, and I'm going to add some single arcs here and there, just to break the monotony of the lines. Now I'm going to add a second cord below that one and decorate it with some vertical lines and dots, and then move to this other area here, which I'm going to decorate with 3 rows of solid triangles and then I'm going to add some background to them. Horizontal lines in the bottom row, dots in the middle one, and again horizontal lines on the top one. Now I'm going to fill the area above with some rows of semicircles and triangles, and I'm going to decorate them with dots and vertical lines. And on the very top I'm going to add just a pattern with decorated zigzags. I'm going to add a line here to create a chord and decorate it, and now create another chord here to delimitate the area. I'm now embellishing the whole perimeter of the area with some semicircles and adding a solid color all around it. And now I'm going to fill the area with the pattern of triangles inside other triangles we saw before. Remember, we start with a triangle, then from one vertex we trace a line up to the opposite side of the outer triangle, and keep doing the same with the other sides of the triangle, and keep building inner triangles. Then we add another triangle next to it and build the inner ones, and keep doing the same until the whole area is filled. Nice. Let's now create another drawing area by placing another chord here and decorating it with some semicircles. I'm going to divide this area into parts and fill the one on the left with a mosaic pattern built with some irregular geometric shapes filled with a solid color. I like that pattern a lot. It is great when you have to add a solid area or a dark area to your designs. Let's make this line a chord and decorate it with some dots. And now I'm going to add here the wavy design with a depth effect we saw before. And I'm going to add another row with the same pattern above that one. And I'm going to decorate the top part with some chords with different designs. Let's now move to the bottom area. I'm going to create a chord here, decorate it, and add a second chord with a different design. In this area here, I'm going to create two large arcs to create two small drawing areas, and add a chord here to delimitate the area above the arcs. And I'm going to fill the border of the arcs with a solid color. Now I'm going to decorate the chord with some leaves, which I'm embellishing with a thick border, and I'm going to go over the border of the chord to make it thicker. And then add some decorations behind the leaves. And I'm going to add some dots to half of each leaf. Now I'm going to fill the area with a roof tile pattern made with semicircles, which I'm embellishing with a thick border and some vertical lines. One of the rows is going to be filled with the lines, but the other one is going to be white. I think this adds a little contrast, which is always nice. Instead of filling the whole area with the same pattern, I'm going to fill the top part with a solid color, leaving some white shapes, leaves in that case. I'm going to add a curved line here to create a white space to separate the two patterns. I'm going to add some dots to that white area here. Nice. Now I'm going to add a solid chord here to create another drawing area and fill it with a variation of a very interesting pattern we saw in the tutorial. We start with a curved line and add a new one touching the previous one in one side. We keep adding more lines, making each one a little larger than the previous one, and keep adding more and more until we reach the opposite side of the area. Now I'm going to fill this space here with the same pattern, and then keep building from that one, but now making each curved line smaller than the previous one, and going all the way to the opposite side of the area. And now, using the same technique, I'm going to create more shapes until I fill the whole area. I'm going to make some small ones kind of overlapping each other, but feel free to experiment and see what do you get and what do you like. This pattern is very fun to draw and it's kind of relaxing too. I really love it. And the result is great, don't you think so? I think we need something geometric here. I'm going to add a row of triangles to that side of the area and decorate them. My camera went off here, I apologize for that. What I was doing was decorating the triangles and I started to fill the area with a pattern made with some sets of concentric semicircles. Then I decided to put a decorated cord here to make the area I'm going to fill with these concentric semicircles smaller. And this is where we are now. Let's fill this area with this lovely pattern. Now I'm creating a vertical line here to create a square area. And now I'm going to fill it with a set of straight lines that meet in one vertex of the square. And this is the pattern we get. It's very nice too. My marker ran out of ink here and I don't have another one with the same color, but no problem. I'm going to use the red one. Hope it doesn't ruin the design. I don't think so. I'm dividing this area into two parts using a cord and then extending that cord all around the perimeter of the upper part of the area. Then I'm going to embellish it with alternating blocks of white and solid color. Now I'm going to start filling the bottom part of the area with a pattern of triangles with depth similar to the one we drew before but with curvy lines. The area where I was drawing was out of the reach of the camera, sorry for that, but no problem. The pattern wasn't finished, so you can see me drawing the rest of it. Let's recall how to draw that pattern. We start with a zigzag between two parallel lines and then fill the bottom triangles with lines parallel to one side of the triangle and the top triangles with lines parallel to the other side of the triangle so that you get parallel lines in opposite directions. Then I like to go over the zigzag line to highlight the filling of depth. Let's now add another row with the same pattern and decorate the top border with a pattern of solid squares. Now let's add a row of arcs decorated with a thick border and a line of circles at the top. And now let's fill the top area with a pattern based on curved lines. My camera stopped recording again, sorry for that. This is the final pattern, but let's review how to create it in case you don't remember it from the tutorial. We start with a curved line and add more lines following the direction of that one, touching it at some point. Then we add another set of those curved lines in another direction and keep adding as many as we want. Then we can fill the areas in between with a solid color. Now let's create another pattern here. This is the same one we saw before with triangles, but this time with squares or rectangles. We start with a rectangle and from one vertex we start creating an inner one, going with each side up to the side of the immediately outer rectangle. Let's add two more of those designs. They look nice. And then let's add an outer thick border around them. I'm going to add some decorations here and fill the rest of the area with different patterns. All of them are designs we have seen in the tutorial. And finally the two arcs on the bottom left area. I'm going to decorate the first one with concentric arcs, each one embellished in a different way. And in the second one, I'm going to add a leaf and decorate it with different designs, and then divide the background into areas separated with a stripe and decorate each one of the areas with a different design. And this is it. I'm pretty happy with the result. We have seen how to create a lot of different designs with just a few shapes and simple patterns. Part of the secret is to play with the decorations and the way we combine things together. And very important, Don't be afraid of experimenting. There is no a wrong or right way of creating a doodle. Just practice, play with it, and you will find what works better for you. Hope you had a good time. Thanks for watching and have fun with your doodles.